Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace? Are you unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. I believe that opening up to people and being vulnerable with people, creating this type of intimacy and connection is really important, and I think it's also really powerful. However, I think if you don't assess people beforehand and you're just seeking that type of connection from anywhere, I think it's really a dangerous situation you could put yourself into. And I think the reason why I say this, and I guess the experiences that I've had, and one of the most prevalent experiences is when I was initially coming to college, and I had met 3 people. They were my first 3 people I had met, and we became so close within a 2-week span, right? And because you want to become it's when you're coming to college, right? It's you don't know anyone else unless you've brought your friends or whatever. But the basic sense is you don't know anyone else. You want to make friends really easily. You see how everyone has those groups, and on television shows you'll see it. But you want that. And because you're so impatient and you're not really taking the time to seek it in from the correct people, you might tend to, at least in my situation when I did it, I overshared with people I probably shouldn't have overshared with. And not because I'm any hate, any judgment or anything like that. It just probably wasn't people who in the future I'd be really hanging out with, or we might not have shared the same values, the same morals. So that's not anything hateful or anything like that. It's just that because you're so impatient, and especially within those first 2 weeks, you kind of just open up to people in order to see, to just get them, because you want to create already that surrounding. You want to create that connection with these people. You want to have those groups. And what I realized, looking back at it now, because the way it was for, I guess the 3 friends that I had, we kind of separated after the 2 weeks, because it was kind of not that I don't fuck with you, but I don't fuck with you in that specific way necessarily. And that wasn't a bad thing, because I don't think our situation ended up in we were hating on each other or talking shit about each other. But in some situations that can happen. And I think this happens a lot to overshares. And an oversharer is the way I put it is someone who is literally seeking validation and seeking attention from others, and you want to create intimacy with people in a very short period of time. I think people who overshare are often considered also people who trauma dump a lot. They'll come out of nowhere. You'll be having a conversation and all of a sudden you're yeah, so this happened to me when I was a kid. And I was whoa, wait a minute. And I consider myself a person who does overshare. I think now, I was gonna say now that I've gotten older, but it's not that I've gotten older, it's just I've had more experiences, both negative and positive ones as well. I just understand that it's not a good thing to be oversharing like that. It's not necessarily because when you do it, you're not creating actual intimacy. It's false intimacy, because it's you're forcing someone to take in this information from you, right? So that there's a connecting point there, right? And I think when people who overshare are trying to seek connection, instead of seeking connection, they're seeking attachment. And I think this comes a lot from people who especially experience an anxious attachment style. And again, if you don't know what that is, an anxious attachment style is when you were younger, whoever was taking care of you, it's kind of they gave you an unpredictable amount of care here and there. So it'd be an on and off again relationship kind of. And I think when you're in an on and off again relationship, you kind of just want to be closer to the person, you are more needy in that sense. And so when I characterize people who are oversharers, no hate, no judgment, because I myself have been one, still am one, and I'm a recovering one. I do characterize them as someone who has an anxious attachment style, someone who is a bit more needy, someone who is willing to share information that other people are not willing to automatically. And in the past, I've thought of that as like, oh my God, it's so brave that you're willing to just like share these things with people. I'm like, now that I see it, no, it's not the best thing in some situations. And I think that there are a lot of consequences to opening up. Like, as I said before, I do think it is like a very powerful concept, like being able to be vulnerable with people and create that connection. But when you're doing it in an incorrect manner, and when your manner of actually going about seeking connection stems from your trauma, it can lead to very bad outcomes, right? First of all, because like you're just wanting to have like a connection with, like, I think it's like the majority of people who are around you, you know? Sometimes it's like you want everyone to kind of like you. You're not even like connecting with the people who are actually like meant for you. And like, what I mean by meant for you, like people who have like the same morals as you, the same values as you, people who want the same things as you. So you're putting yourself into conversations that are not meant for you, and that are not gonna help you in your purpose, in whatever your passions, whatever. It's not going to be beneficial to you, right? This doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just not the place for you, right? And so the consequences of oversharing without being patient, right? And the consequences of just like going for anyone you see is that you're not finding people who have the same morals as you. You're not finding people with the best intentions for you yet, right? And that is shown to you very evidently, like when you see like their actions, you see the way they move around, right? And for an oversharer, that is really, like when I talk about this, I think it's really hard to stop. Like it's really hard to not want to seek that connection with people. But I don't think like as someone who overshares, you need to necessarily stop like, you know, bringing that like authenticity, like that wanting to create that connection with someone like in a fast pace. Like I don't think you need to stop necessarily, but I do think you need to become more selective with it. And the way that I've improved my sense of creating like relationships and friendships in that sense, is I have to kind of hold myself back now. And I'm very reserved in a sense, like that doesn't mean I'm not myself anymore towards people like I just normally just met. Like I don't have a filter. People will often tell you that. Maybe that's because of my lack of situational awareness in some cases. But what I mean by that is like I am more reserved, I'm more quiet. I'm not as willing now in some conversations, even with the people who I'm seeking to become friends with. Like, you know, when you've seen a person, okay, you're like, okay, this one, she's driven, she's highly motivated, I want to become friends with her. Like even in those situations, I'm not necessarily like oversharing to the point where it's like uncomfortable amount. I am more quiet and more reserved, and I kind of do it like in my mind. I'm hosting them and like talking to them as if it's like an interview, right? And the reason why I say that is because I'm more now like when I'm in these conversations, especially like initially I'm meeting these people, I'm trying to assess them. So that means I'm asking more questions about themselves. We're talking more about them, and it's easier for me then to gauge, okay, should I move further with this person? Are we really aligned with some of our values? Are some of the behaviors that they're showing and characteristics, like, is that something that I want to have around me? Is that energy going to be beneficial towards me? And it's really difficult, especially as someone who just like, you know, you want to have like these connecting points with automatically, and you want to increase the pace really quickly. It's really difficult to sometimes to hold yourself back. But I think you get better at it when you realize like how cautious you have to be sometimes. And it's not because people are bad or anything like that necessarily. This is not to say become more paranoid, you know, just question people and interrogate people. No, it's so that like you understand who you're actually like getting involved with, and I don't just mean that in like a romantic sense, but in even like a platonic sense, like so you know who you're surrounding yourself with. because some people, like, as great as it is to open up, some people don't deserve to get to know you, and some people shouldn't know you the same way sometimes you shouldn't know certain people, right? And this doesn't mean that automatically, you know, even as you build this trust with these people, because that takes time, right? And I think people, when like you're rushing to create that intimacy, they forget that trust takes time. Trust takes seeing their character, right? That doesn't mean that there's gonna be no cases in where someone backstabs you. That could happen, right? And that's normal. That's just part of being human. Some people are just like that, right? But it's just a better way of going about it. And especially I think it's a better way of going about it because now it's also like it's lessening the opportunity for you to also like trauma dump on people. Like when I'm assessing someone now, right, and because I'm asking more questions about them, it lessens the time that I have to talk about like, oh, so this happened, or like, you know, go really in depth about like an experience or something like that. Because I know right now, wait, like calm down, Sinead, I don't need to like tell these people this much about me right now. I can wait and see what's gonna happen. So I think it like lessens the opportunity for that, because there have been lots of times where I overshare and then I'm looking back at that conversation and I'm like, I should not have told them all of this, right? So being quieter now, still seeking those friendships, but like just asking more about them, because I know myself, I don't know them. I think it helps you to be more selective with who you're gonna open up with. And I know it's hard as an oversharer, but you do have to realize that patience and time helps to build trust. It helps to see if this person is actually going to be a reliable person in your life, and if they actually also deserve to hear you open up and be near that, because being vulnerable, it is hard for many people. So also being like true to yourself in that sense, I think that when you allow the time to seek people who are meant for you, even when it's hard for you to shut up because you literally want to vomit out all your thoughts and things from the past to connect with these people really quickly, I think it leads to better, just better connections overall and less attachments, right? And like reflecting on how, because like now I've reflected on myself being someone who overshares, now it's also really easy to see kind of when other people are doing it to me. And I kind of realize now, being on the receiving end, sometimes how difficult it is actually to be in a space where someone is just like, do you know what happened to me, Sinead? Like, this happened the other day, and like it made me feel like, I was like, wait a minute, we just met each other. Like, I think it's definitely different like when you've had like longer friendships, but like when you just met a person and they're just telling you all of this, it's like, it's kind of daunting, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. And because I know like when I've overshared in the past, I'm seeking attention and validation. Might not be the case for everyone else, but for me it was. I usually try not to like give any advice, and because like I don't really know like what the purpose of it was. Sometimes I do ask like out of pocketly, like, so why did you feel the need or why did you feel the want to share this with me? Because I realized like, wow, that just took a lot from me. Like even the capacity of like hearing that, like I didn't have that at the time, right? And now that I'm realizing a lot of people actually do it, it makes me kind of take a step away from people, because I don't want to put myself in that space where we're like automatically, you know, you're just giving me this information, because I feel like I haven't like there hasn't been enough time for us to show each other like that, okay, we're gonna be good friends, or like we align on many things, or even the fact that like you're sharing this with me, like why do you know I'm not gonna tell this to someone else? Like I'm not going to, but still, like how do you know that? Like it makes me a bit more like cautious about this person, because maybe they're just like, they want that connection to the point where they're just seeking for attachment. And that's not to hate on anything like that, because once again, I've been that person at the same time, but now being on the receiving end, like I can see how sometimes it's like a turnoff in a way, and I don't know, like in some cases I'll even be asking myself like, why do I deserve to get to know this person? Like, what makes me worthy of this person being open to me and opening up to me? So I think like being on the opposite side of it now, I do see like why oversharing is a huge problem, right? And like, when I was like still doing it, and I still do it now, but in selective cases, but when I was doing it constantly, and especially to create lots of connections, like I did have to ask myself, like, why do I feel the need to connect with the majority of people around me? And that's a question I want you guys to ask yourselves, because like I feel in some cases, some people just want to be liked a lot. Like for me, that was it. Like I want to be liked a lot, and in recent times I've had people tell me like, Sinead, they don't like you like because you don't say hi to them. I'm like, my bad, I didn't know that. Or like, they don't like you because you act like this. I'm like, there's some things like, it's okay. Like I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, right? But yeah, and then as you move forward and you actually reflect on how you're actually creating the connections that you have right now, I want you to actually ask yourself, like, what type of people are you looking to connect with, right? Because then when you're giving them the time and when you're asking them the questions, like you can seek for certain patterns and you can seek for certain like behaviors and characteristics that are gonna align with the type of people you're willing to connect with. And at the end of the day, I kind of want you to remember that you hold so much value within yourself, right? So not everyone deserves to see you open up in that life. Being vulnerable is a very strong and powerful, it's very strong like concept, I guess, right? So, and it's okay to want to be open up to everyone, but you have to remember that at the end of the day, you're still being vulnerable. Like guard that and make sure that the people that you are actually opening up to are deserving of it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Fuck. No, let me restart.
Peace out.
ASAP.